Have you ever sat by the window with a cup of tea in your hand and wondered, why do people treat being single like it's a problem that needs fixing? Maybe you've heard someone say, "Oh, she's still alone," or "He never remarried," as if singleness is a state of lack. But what if I told you it's not? What if I told you that being single, especially now, might just be one of the most powerful, peaceful, and liberating times of your life? There's something deeply calming about reaching a stage in life where you no longer need to chase anything. Not love, not approval, not even someone to sit beside you at dinner. And this doesn't mean you've given up on connection. It means you've made peace with yourself. That's something worth celebrating. It's in this quiet space that wisdom settles in, and suddenly you begin to notice the strength in standing alone. Now, I'm not here to tell you marriage or companionship is bad. Many people find great joy in their relationships. But for some of us, being single has unlocked doors we didn't even know existed. Doors to self-discovery, freedom, and a kind of joy that isn't dependent on anyone else. And this is where timeless wisdom gently guides us. True happiness doesn't come from what you have, but from how you respond to life. Real strength lies in self-sufficiency, not the kind that isolates you, but the kind that grounds you. You see, when you're single, you're not waiting for someone to complete you. You already are whole. Picture this with me. Imagine a wide open field stretching far beyond the horizon. Those in relationships often build cozy homes in that field, safe, warm, structured. But for the single soul, that field is entirely open. No walls, no fences, just sky above and earth beneath. You're free to walk anywhere, meet anyone, and change direction without asking for permission. There's a quiet power in that. When you're single, your time is your own. No schedules to merge. No compromises about where to go, what to eat, or how to spend your Sunday afternoons. You get to live deliberately. And that kind of freedom is rare and beautiful, especially as we age. You might find yourself waking up one morning and deciding, today I'll paint, or maybe I'll visit that park I haven't seen in years. There's no one else's mood to navigate, no silent expectations to manage. Just you and the moment. And in that space, something magical happens. You begin to listen more closely to your own heart. And then there's the beauty of unexpected friendships. Sometimes when we're partnered, our social world shrinks without us noticing. But when you're single, you're more likely to strike up conversations, build friendships that might have otherwise passed you by, or reconnect with people you lost touch with years ago. You become open in a different way. You see others not through the lens of romance, but through a genuine desire to understand and connect. That's a kind of love too. Steady, kind, and deeply nourishing. Let me tell you something the world doesn't say enough. Love isn't only found in romantic relationships. It's in the friend who brings you soup when you're sick. It's in the grandchild who calls to say they miss you. It's in the neighbor who waves each morning. These moments of connection are real, and sometimes they shine even brighter when we aren't chasing after the kind that's been so glorified in movies. Being single also means fewer distractions from the things that truly matter to you. Maybe you have a garden that's become your little patch of heaven, or books that have been waiting for your attention. Perhaps there's a story inside you that you've long wanted to write. When you're alone, there's space for these passions to bloom. No need to check in with anyone before diving deep into your curiosity. And this solitude, it's not loneliness. Loneliness is a hunger. But solitude? Solitude is a feast when it's embraced. It's where the mind becomes still, and clarity arrives like the first sunlight after a storm. Think of the caterpillar tucked inside its cocoon, not hidden, but preparing. When you're single, you get to be that caterpillar. You get to grow wings. Now, some folks might say, but I don't want to be single forever. That's perfectly fine. Life brings what it brings. But here's the truth. Even if you're single for now, that time isn't just a pause. It's a season rich with possibility, and how you use it can change everything. There's an old story about a man who lost everything in a shipwreck. Stranded in a foreign city with nothing, he wandered into a bookstore and picked up a book by chance. That book changed his life. What began as a tragedy turned into the start of something extraordinary. That's what being single can be, an unexpected opening, a redirection towards something meaningful. I know that at our age people might look at us differently. They might assume that if we're alone, we must be sad or unlucky or waiting. But they don't see the quiet mornings filled with gratitude, the joy of making decisions for ourselves, the peace that comes when we stop needing others to define our worth. So let me ask you this. What would you do today if no one else's opinion mattered? What would you explore if you had nothing to prove, no roles to fill, and no expectations to meet? You see, being single gives you that space. It gives you time to be who you are, not who someone else needs you to be. It's not always easy, and yes, there are moments of silence that might feel heavy. But in those silences, you may hear something you've never noticed before, your own voice. Strong, clear, steady. And maybe that's what this stage of life is really about. Not running after anything or anyone, but becoming still enough to finally listen and discover that what you've been looking for all along is already inside you. Let's keep walking this path together. And as we walk this path step by steady step, something inside us shifts. We begin to notice how we move differently in the world. There's no need to hurry to please someone else. No constant recalibration to fit into another's rhythm. Instead, there's a gentle unfolding of your own pace, your own way of being. That's the quiet gift of singleness. It hands you back the map to your own life. One of the most empowering aspects of this journey is how you get to manage your time. Think about that for a moment. Time, the most precious thing we have, is fully yours again. There's no waiting for someone to be ready. No adjusting plans, no negotiating routines. When you're single, your mornings belong to you. Your evenings are a blank canvas. Your weekends are invitations to explore. And each decision you make flows from your own sense of what matters most. That might mean waking early for a walk while the air is still cool and the world is quiet. Or it might mean sleeping in, reading under the covers, and letting the day unfold slowly. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to squeeze yourself into someone else's schedule. There's a calm in that kind of control, a peace that comes from living in tune with your own rhythm. Not resisting your truth, but flowing with it. And here's something else. When you're not entangled in the responsibilities that often come with a relationship, your mind opens up to new possibilities. Suddenly, that trip you put off for years feels doable. That online course you bookmarked becomes more than a wish. It becomes action. You can decide, without delay, to pursue something you love. And that's not selfish. That's living. Now imagine this. You're sitting in a little cafe in a town you've never been to before. You struck up a conversation with the woman at the next table or the gentleman pouring your coffee. You share stories. You laugh. There's a lightness in that moment. That's the kind of thing that can happen more often when you're single. Your life is more open to surprise. You're more available, not just physically, but emotionally, to connect with the world around you. And these connections, they don't need to lead to romance. That's a misconception, that every bond has to go somewhere serious. Sometimes a shared laugh, a kind word, or a new friend is exactly enough. These are the colors that brighten our lives, especially in this stage where we begin to see more clearly what really matters. And let's speak honestly now, money is a part of this too. When you're in a relationship, especially one where finances are shared, decisions about money become tangled. There are compromises, shared goals, and sometimes even guilt. But when you're single, you make the call. You know exactly what's coming in and going out. You don't have to check with anyone before you treat yourself to that special something you've earned. And it's not just about saving money. It's about directing it in a way that reflects who you are now. Maybe you want to take that cooking class you've always thought about. Maybe it's finally time to replace the old armchair with something you really love. Or maybe you want to plan a little trip with your grandkids, or just save up for peace of mind. Every dollar has meaning when it's spent with purpose. And when no one else is steering that ship, you learn to trust your own judgment more deeply. Someone once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." In other words, happiness isn't found in more stuff. It's found in enough. And when you're single, you're more likely to recognize what enough truly means for you. It's funny how the world tells us that the highest kind of love is romantic love, the kind found in movies and novels, the kind that's fiery, intense, and all-consuming. But ask anyone who's lived long enough and they'll tell you, the deepest loves are often the quiet ones. The friend who shows up, the neighbor who checks in, the daughter who knows when you need a call. These are the loves that stay, the loves that don't demand or take. They simply give, and give deeply. Being single gives you the space to nurture those kinds of love. You're not pulled in different directions. You're not constantly managing one person's expectations while trying to care for everyone else. Your heart is free to stretch wide, to give more to your friends, your family, your community. And in giving, something beautiful happens. You become more full. That fullness doesn't come from being claimed by someone else. It comes from claiming your own space in the world and filling it with kindness. There's an ancient wisdom in letting go of what we're told we should be doing, and instead asking, what brings me peace? What brings me joy? The answers don't always come quickly, but they come more clearly when we stop filling the silence with noise. When we lean into solitude, not as a burden, but as a teacher. There's a quiet strength in resilience, finding contentment in what we already have and preparing our minds for life's uncertainties. And truly, what better way to embody that than to stand alone, strong, peaceful, and rooted in yourself? You don't need to be lonely to be alone. And you certainly don't need to be partnered to be complete. Each day, you wake up with the chance to decide who you want to be, not in reaction to anyone else, but simply as you. That's not something to be pitied. That's something to be proud of. Because living fully on your own terms, that takes courage. Let's keep walking this road, one step at a time, with open hearts and strong minds. There's something remarkably grounding about realizing that you are enough, right now, just as you are. No one to impress, no roles to perform, no masks to wear. That quiet knowing settles in like the warmth of sunlight through a window, slowly and gently. And it brings with it a new kind of energy. Not the frantic kind of youth, but a deeper, steadier power that grows when you start living for yourself. One of the most overlooked blessings of being single is the chance to truly take care of your body. It's so common for people in relationships, especially long-term ones, to slip into routines that, while comforting, aren't always the healthiest. Movie nights on the couch, comfort food, skipped workouts, all innocent enough on their own, but over time, they add up. We give so much to our loved ones that we sometimes forget to give the same care to ourselves. But when you're single, you have space. You have time. You have the ability to choose your habits with more intention. You can cook meals that nourish you, not just please someone else. You can walk in the mornings, stretch in the afternoons, or dance in the kitchen if that's what your body needs. You can move because you want to feel good, not because anyone else is watching. And here's the truth. No one says out loud, the older we get, the more we realize that health is not a luxury. It's a foundation. A strong body supports a strong mind, and strength of spirit often begins with how we care for our physical selves. Being single gives you the rare chance to focus on that without guilt or distraction. It's not about vanity. It's about vitality. Think about how much better you sleep when you're not carrying the weight of someone else's stress. How much lighter you feel when your day isn't packed with compromise. You start choosing what feels good for you. Maybe that's a walk in nature, a weekly swim, or just keeping up with your medical checkups. These little acts of self-respect add up. They are your quiet declaration. I matter. My well-being matters. But physical health is only one part of the story. There's also your inner world, the part no one sees but you live with every single day. Being single, especially at this stage of life, gives you a rare chance to explore that inner landscape more deeply. It's like standing in front of a vast, untouched field with no map, no pressure, and all the time you need to walk it slowly, curiously. That might mean diving into a new hobby, like painting or gardening. It might mean picking up an old one you left behind decades ago. Or it might be something entirely new, taking a class, learning a language, writing that story you've always wanted to tell. Not because you have to, but because now, finally, you can. And with every new experience, every fresh discovery, you expand. You become more than you were. You grow, not to please anyone else, but because you're worth growing for. That's what makes this chapter of singleness so sacred. It's yours. And the beauty of it all? There's no rush. No one's waiting for you to change. No deadlines. No pressure to become anyone other than who you already are. You can take your time to become more curious, more thoughtful, more joyful, more you. There's a quiet freedom in that. Not just the freedom to come and go, to plan your days and nights your way, but the freedom to think your own thoughts, to feel without filtering, to live without compromise. It's about living true to your nature, not nature out there, but your own inner rhythm. Who you were always meant to be before the world told you what boxes to fit into. And this freedom, it's not lonely, it's expansive. When you're not locked into a single relationship, you're more open to many kinds of connection. You might spend more time with grandchildren, have longer chats with old friends, or build new relationships you never saw coming. That's the richness of singlehood. It's not the absence of love, it's the broadening of it. Some people think that if you're not in a romantic relationship, you're missing out. But what if the opposite is true? What if being single allows you to experience more of life, more types of love, more versions of joy? What if it gives you the space to feel everything more fully because you're not rushing past it to meet someone else's needs? You become more present, more aware. You notice the light in the leaves when you walk through the park, the kindness in a stranger's smile, the small victories in your day, the clean kitchen, the finished book, the simple act of being at peace with yourself. These are not small things. They are the fabric of a contented life. You see, fulfillment doesn't always arrive with a diamond ring or a wedding photo. Sometimes it looks like sitting alone in your favorite chair, wrapped in a blanket, sipping tea, and knowing you are enough. That you've come this far, weathered so many storms, and still have so much life ahead. That is not loneliness. That is strength. And if ever a moment comes when you do want to invite someone into your life, you do it from a place of fullness, not need, not emptiness, but wholeness. Because you've already built a life that is meaningful on its own. You're not waiting to be rescued. You're simply open to companionship, if and when it comes. And if it doesn't, you're still okay. This is the essence of a grounded life: contentment, resilience, and clarity. And these things don't come from romance. They come from inside, from walking through life with your head held high and your heart rooted in truth. So if you're single now, whether by choice, by chance, or by change, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not behind. You are not incomplete. You are not lacking. You are exactly where you need to be. And this time in your life is full of meaning, possibility, and joy, if only you're willing to see it. When you begin to see your singleness not as an absence, but as a powerful presence in your life, everything changes. The pressure fades. The noise quiets down. And what's left is something rare and beautiful, a life on your terms. Now let's talk about something deeply practical, your energy. Not the kind you spend doing chores or running errands, but the deeper kind, the soul energy. Have you ever noticed how relationships, especially the difficult ones, can drain you? That constant negotiation, the emotional guesswork, the unspoken expectations, it's exhausting. But when you're single, your energy belongs to you again. You can choose where it goes. Maybe you put it into learning something new, or helping others, or simply resting when you need to. You don't have to split yourself into pieces to make someone else whole. That's a quiet kind of liberation most people never even realize they're missing. There's a kind of wisdom that stands the test of time. True freedom doesn't come from changing your circumstances. It comes from changing how you see them. It turns out very little is needed to make a happy life. It all begins within, in how you think and what you choose to believe. You don't need a partner to give your life meaning. You don't need approval to feel worthy. You simply need to be willing to look inward and to walk through each day with honesty and courage. One of the most unexpected joys of singlehood is how your relationship with the world itself transforms. You're no longer looking through the narrow lens of coupledom, where everything has to be shared, agreed upon, negotiated. You begin to experience life in its fullness, with your senses wide open. The world isn't smaller, it's bigger. You might find yourself sitting in a cafe on your own and realizing you're not lonely at all. You're alive. Or maybe you take a trip somewhere new, not because anyone else wanted to go, but because you did. And when you get there, you walk through a museum or down a winding street, and you realize you're not missing out. You're soaking it in. This is what it means to live fully present. To stop waiting. To stop wishing things had turned out differently. And to begin embracing what is, with both hands and a grateful heart. And maybe, just maybe, as you step deeper into this chapter of your life, you'll start to realize that being single has taught you something relationships never could. It's taught you to be your own companion, to be kind to yourself, to laugh with yourself, to forgive yourself. These are the things that sustain you, not just today, but always. Think of the people in your life right now. Not the ones you've lost or the ones who drifted, but the ones still here. The friends who check in. The family members who light up when you call. The strangers who smile as you pass by. You have the space now to lean into those relationships, to show up more deeply, to love more freely, not because you need to be loved back, but because you can. And there's something else you have, the gift of knowing yourself. After 60, 70, or more years on this earth, you've lived. You've seen heartache and joy. You've been broken and mended. You've laughed when it didn't make sense to, and cried when no one else could see. And here you are, still standing. That strength, that wisdom, that's not something you get from being in a relationship. That's something you earn by walking through life with open eyes and an open heart. So let others chase whatever they think will make them whole. Let society keep telling its story about what a good life should look like. But you know better now. You know that peace comes not from finding someone to walk with, but from learning to walk well on your own. And when someone does come along, whether a friend, a kindred spirit, or even a new love, you greet them not as someone searching, but as someone whole. Let your singleness be your strength. Let it be the space where you breathe deeply, where you heal, where you rediscover who you are. Don't fill the silence with worry. Fill it with music, with meaning, with the sound of your own soul waking up. You've earned this time. You've earned the right to be happy, content, and at peace, without needing anyone else to give it to you. So, if today you find yourself sitting alone, know this: you are not alone in the way the world often means it. You are surrounded by your own resilience, your own wisdom, your own quiet joy. That is enough. In fact, it's more than enough. And if you felt even a flicker of truth in what we've shared here today, I invite you to stay connected. Share your thoughts in the comments. Let others know what this journey has meant for you. Because your voice matters. Your story matters. And sometimes just knowing someone else out there feels the same is enough to carry us through the next day with a lighter heart. If this message touched you, I hope you'll take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We're building a community rooted in honesty, strength, and self-discovery, one that honors every season of life, especially this one. And as we close, remember this timeless truth. True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. That present, my friend, is here. It is now. And it is yours. So go on. Live it. Fully. Freely. Fiercely. You are more than enough.